You also talk about traditional African governance. How do you incorporate this traditional system in a setting like in Cameroon or in Togo or in Nigeria? But how do we incorporate this traditional system into our governance or into democracy to have a democratic governance?
So traditional governance, for example, in the grassfields of Cameroon, clearly separates the executive from the legislative, from the judiciary. And these three powers are balanced. They are balanced to the extent that the legislative has power of death over the executive, should the executive begin to govern contrary to the interests of the people. So these are lessons to be learned and to be brought into our modern day governance. You know, you remember the saying that Africans used to solve problems around the baobab tree. Well, this was participatory governance. It was consultation of the people. It was discussion. It was a search for consensus until you came to the right, you discuss it until you come to the right solution that everybody feels comfortable with. These are lessons. How many of our leaders today, our heads of states, even hold town hall meetings to get the opinion of the people, to listen to the people? How many of our legislators, people who have been elected into parliament, how many of them hold a town hall meeting?
You're going to be the first one to do that.
So yeah, that's definitely on my political agenda, and some do. If you go, for example, to East Africa, you find especially parliamentarians that are very much consulting with the people. But I think that these are the lessons to be learned. If you look at our traditional governance, we had women's societies. These were very powerful societies. And in many traditions, no decision could be taken without consulting the women, without making sure that they were in agreement with the decision. You know, I asked my grandmother once about this, and she said, well, it's very logical. Take a decision, for example, of going to war. The men are the warriors. They are looking at the military strategy. But we are the keepers of the food. If they want to go to war, they have to check with us to make sure that the pantries, the storage, the food storage, is enough, because during war, nobody is going to be farming, nobody is going to be... So you have to make sure that we have stored enough food to ensure the well-being not only of the soldiers, but of the village during that period. If we've not done it, we tell them, sorry, we can't engage in this. So you see, people had different roles, and they needed to be consulted. They needed to have discussion and consensus to take key decisions. So those are the lessons that I feel we can learn from governance. And, you know, I have a whole seminar that I give and a conference that I give on African women's leadership, dating back with African women leaders from the 14th century. Because people, you know, they don't know Amina of Zaria, that's northern Nigeria, who was a military strategist and who led an army in the 14th century, you know. And they don't know one of my favorite, Queen Zinga of Angola, who fought against the Portuguese for over 50 years and is considered one of the greatest military minds that has ever lived. So it is also about teaching young Africans our history, because the unfortunate fruits of colonization is that you lose your history, and therefore you lose your identity. And, you know, today when people say to me, this is so strange for a woman to be, you know, running for president and wanting the leadership of a nation, I say, no, it's not. I come from a long, long line, centuries ago, of African women who have been leading states and who have been leading nations. We need to know about them, and we need to learn from them.